Is Texas A&M about to come after Lane? And more importantly, is Lane going to listen?
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thanks to everyone for helping us get over 5,000 subscribers. We do a live stream every Tuesday night called Shark Tank Live. Tune in for that. That is the gift for us crossing the 5,000 subscriber threshold. We're going for 6,000 now. That is remote broadcast, and 7,000 will be a call-in show if you subscribe to this program. If you haven't subscribed, please do down below. If you have, please tell a friend. And also, if you listen to this podcast on one of the other mediums, go over to the YouTube page and give us a subscribe there. We'd appreciate that very much. Anyway, I just want to say today's show is brought to you by the Gametime ticketing app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the Gametime app, use the create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I hope everybody is having a good Monday, or as least as good a Monday as you possibly can. So we're going to do this again, apparently. This is apparently going to happen. We're going to wait and see if Lane pours cold water on it, which he might. There's a chance that Lane learned his lesson from last year, but there's also a chance that it just doesn't matter to him. It's just better for him not to address it, to be aloof and things like that. And it can create a life of its own. Now, Ole Miss and Texas A&M is completely two different animals. What is successful at Ole Miss will not be successful at Texas A&M. Ole Miss has more national championships across multiple sports in the Big Three than Texas A&M since 1940. Texas A&M hasn't done that since 1940 or something like that. Ole Miss has won in football 3 times and in baseball once. That's multiple national championships across the Big Three sports. And also a situation at Ole Miss to where during Christmas and things like that, you can jet set away to do some of the ocean stuff because Lane has carte blanche to do that. You will not be able to do that at Texas A&M. With the money that they can pay comes the strings that are attached to that job. And there are strings because nobody has won there. I will bring this up right now. This is from Carl Reed Jr. This is Coach Reed. Every time the Texas A&M job opens, it creates massive excitement because of the money they're willing to spend. However, consistently, it has been a places where coach it goes to die. I do not think Lane Kiffin will take this job, no matter what they're going to come at. I think Auburn is a better job than Texas A&M, and he turned down the Auburn job. His daughter goes to school here. Sure, they might be able to offer a ton of money, but overall, it's not that great of a place to live. He lives in a decent little college town, and even then, it's not living in South Florida, which would be his probable choice. So this is a situation. Every time that these jobs come open, Lane Kiffin's name's going to get mentioned. Deion Sanders' name's going to get mentioned. And that is because it is SEO catnip. And what that means, SEO stands for search engine optimization. Your article is going to get read more times by more people if you have Lane Kiffin and Deion Sanders in there. Everything is done through analytics these days. Search engine optimization is no different. So whenever a job comes open, whether Lane has had contact about it, whether there's interest in it, whether anything happens, Lane Kiffin's name is going to be put in the article as one of the candidates because that means the article is going to get more disseminated by people reading it. I don't think that Lane Kiffin is leaving Ole Miss for Texas A&M. I don't think, honestly, Texas A&M is going to take a shot to get Lane Kiffin. But the media, I think, is going to push Lane Kiffin, push Deion Sanders because of that search engine optimization. This Texas A&M job is probably not one of the 4 or so jobs that people need to worry about when it comes to Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss has gotten to the point where Lane Kiffin is making enough money. There's very few jobs that you have to worry about. Now, obviously, everybody's going to talk about Texas A&M and Texas and those schools because they have so much money. And in their mind, and it's kind of a projection thing, that if you have that amount of resources, you can get whatever you want. Money buys everything. But they're ignoring the stuff that goes with the money. How can you kick the boosters out when the boosters are the one paying for everything? How can you have your program whenever there's going to be boosters looking over your shoulder over the money that they give? They paid $30 million allegedly for a recruiting class that has not panned out. They're about to fire Jimbo Fisher and give him $76 million not to coach football. They're going to hire another head coach, whoever it might be. It's not going to be a wild card. It absolutely is not going to be a wild card. It's going to be who in their mind is going to give them the most bang for their buck and their most access, because the boosters are calling the shots over there, and who their friend is that they're going to have access with is going to give them the best chance to win. What happened when Jimbo got hired is rumors started going around that LSU was looking to get rid of Ed Orgeron or something. I think it was Ed Orgeron at that point. And they were getting ready to do that. And the athletic director at A&M panicked, and they just threw $100-something million at Jimbo. Put the North Korean band out on the tarmac and let's go. Lane Kiffin would be an absolute miserable fit in Texas A&M. And I think Texas A&M knows that as well as Lane Kiffin and everybody. But you're going to see that name pop up because of that search engine optimization. Everything is clicks-based now. Everything. Whenever people talk about clickbait, everything is clickbait. So Lane Kiffin being in a story is essentially clickbait, and you can't really trust if it's true or not. So why wouldn't Lane Kiffin acknowledge all of these things when they're using him and he hasn't done anything to indicate that he was interested in the job? Why would he throw fire on that flame? That answer is for whenever he doesn't say anything in the press conference this week. Although I hope he does. I hope Lane Kiffin says, I'm going to be here next year. I realized last year was a problem. Last year was an issue. And we can't do stuff like that. But we're building something pretty special right now. And we have moved the floor of this program up to the level to where, hey, if Ole Miss pops up at around number 10 in the college football playoff poll, it's not surprising. Ole Miss isn't in the top 4. They're not a Michigan roster. They're not an Ohio State roster, Alabama, Georgia. They're not one of those. But they're that next tier. And that is pretty cool for somebody that, was a fan back in the day when just having a number next to my name in the poll was an exciting day for me. When the number 24 Ole Miss Rebels popped up to go play a game, that was an exciting day for me. Now it's gotten to the point, if you're number 24, you're like, well, what went wrong? And as this goes on, Lane Kiffin has Ole Miss in a situation to where they're honestly looking at the New Year's Six. The 2 games they lost are going to end up being the 2 top 5 teams. And you're going to go to the Peach Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, probably not the Fiesta Bowl because that'll be Tulane, and probably not the Orange Bowl because that's the next best non-playoff game. But the Peach or the Cotton Bowl, you'll probably end up there, and you'll play a great game against somebody like Penn State. And all the Ole Miss fans are going to be unbelievably jacked up. You have this recruiting class in place. You have the transfer portal that's really going to take off, because while everybody's going to be talking about the Texas A&M job, what Ole Miss is going to be doing is recruiting that roster and trying to get Evan Stewart here, trying to get Walter Nolan here, trying to get Moose Muhammad, Reuben Owens, those guys to Oxford. Probably not Connor Weigman, because Ole Miss is pretty set at the quarterback position moving forward. But you can get some skill talent for next year's Trey Harris right now in the transfer portal. They've already had one player go into the portal. We'll see exactly how that goes. But my opinion is this: will Texas A&M go after Lane Kiffin? I don't know. I don't think so. Will Lane Kiffin be interested and they do? Probably not. Now, there could be a situation that Texas A&M offers $200 million over 5 years or something ridiculous. That changes things. But if it's just even a Jimbo level contract, I don't think that he would do it because Texas A&M is a coaching graveyard in a $30 million suit. It looks like everything is in place for you to be successful. When you take the job, the answer is like, well, they just need me. But Bear Bryant didn't stay there. The most successful coach that they ever had was probably Jackie Sherrill, maybe? Was it R.C. Slocum, potentially? But overall, that job is a coaching graveyard in a $30 million house. It just is. Anyway, today's show is brought to you by the Gametime ticketing app, and you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy your tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seats, their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets and last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. They have a lot of stuff in place at the moment. So you can buy the tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Click, click, boom, you're done. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on these tickets. They have deals on the tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts, honestly. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and then sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with those own deals, you can pick a section, and Gametime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And with the Gametime guarantee, it means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime ticketing app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. College football season is here, and this season Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff. Live each Friday, Locked On will go live at 11 a.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. Locked On College Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from their stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. I will not be on this week when Ole Miss plays ULM. I know that is shocking. I will pause to let you regather yourself. Anyway, you can find the College Football Kickoff Live show every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't to miss it. All right. We are talking about, honestly, the Texas A&M job, what we did in the first segment. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Georgia game. And honestly, in that situation, you saw an Ole Miss team that was kind of outmatched. When Georgia plays really well, and I say all the time, many people that listen to the show, when 4- and 5-star players play like 4- and 5-star players, you cannot be surprised at the result. Now, Ole Miss did not play well. Their play calling was not good. They did not tackle well. They picked a horrible time to have potentially one of their worst play calling game of the year, especially after Texas A&M, especially after LSU. I thought Ole Miss was going to go with it. I thought they were going to be able to roll. They got whipped up front, though. And early in the second quarter, you're down to basically 3 reserve offensive linemen getting a lot of playing time. And what I mean by that, you have Jeremy James, who's normally your right guard, out of right tackle. Victor Kern has moved around during the game as well, especially somebody that has learned right tackle as his game plan. And then Reese McIntyre is playing center, and Caleb Warren is having to play at a guard position, and Eli Acker is playing as well. And so the offensive line level is not as good as it could be. In the first quarter, Ole Miss was able to run the ball at will, but once that second unit got into the game, it was problematic. And here's the problem when you play a team like Georgia. They have better players than you. Now, let's look at the 2024 recruiting class, just for instance. And this isn't a situation to where I'm really down on what Ole Miss is doing. I just want to illustrate this point. Georgia has the number one class in the country for 2024, the number one class in the SEC, and their average score is 94.46 out of 100 for a player. So, I mean, that is the creme de la creme. This is exactly what you want. This is why they're the back-to-back national championship winners and why they're likely going to win a third one unless something unforeseen happens. Now, if you look at Ole Miss in the same period, this is for the same class. Ole Miss's national rank is 20th. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty good. You look at their SEC rank, they're 11th. That's 11th out of 16 because I think on 3 is counting Oklahoma and Texas at the moment because of the recruiting class for 2024 will include Oklahoma and Texas. But that number, like over half of the top 20 recruiting area are SEC teams. And the class rank, Ole Miss is 89.36. That is nearly a 4-star average, nearly a blue chip average for recruits. You look down, Georgia gets 30% of their players in state because they can get them from everywhere now. Their average NIL value is about 3 times more than what Ole Miss has, and their blue chip ratio is at 81%. And I don't believe in the blue chip ratio, especially in the age of the transfer portal. I think that's a dated metric, but that is still relevant when you're talking about recruiting classes. If you look at Ole Miss, half their class is from a state, mainly because this is a really good football class in state. 27% blue chips. And, you know, it's going to potentially get a little bit better, but that's the gap. That's what happened. Ole Miss got manhandled on both lines of scrimmage. So Ole Miss is recruiting to try and fix that. Here's just some of the players that Ole Miss are recruiting for the 2024. Yeah, Kamarion Franklin, who's playing in the Under Armour All-American game. He's a defensive end. He is a real good player. Once you put him on the sides of Suntarian Perkins, you're going to be able to do some stuff. You have Cameron Beavers. You have Cedric Beavers. You have Travaris Banks. You have Raymond Collins. All of these are defensive players. All of them are 4-star players in at least one service. These are players that are going to make Ole Miss better. Raymond Collins is the number 1 JUCO linebacker in the country. Cameron Beavers, an interior defensive lineman. Kamarion Franklin, like I said, an Under Armour All-American defensive lineman, defensive end. Then you have Cameron Clark, Maurice Davis, 2 defensive ends. You have Jeffrey Rush, a strong side type defensive end. Think Jared Ivey when it comes to that. You look one more. We have William Eccles, who is the 4A Mr. Football in the state of Mississippi. All the sites had him rated as an offensive lineman. Ole Miss spotted him as a defensive lineman, and now all of a sudden his rankings are starting to go up because of how good of a player he is. You got Anthony Robinson, a safety. You have Patrick Broomfield, who is the top cornerback in the state of Mississippi, a long, athletic guy. And I mean, he's not a 4-star player, but you can see how Ole Miss is recruiting the way it sits right now to try and alleviate what we saw Saturday night. And what we saw Saturday night was Ole Miss kind of in a place where they're in no man's land because Georgia's offensive line and defensive line were so good. Ole Miss is trying to build to that place, and they're going to. They're going to get better. Last night was not an indictment on the program. It was not an indictment on either coordinators. It was not an indictment on Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss is going to win 10 games this year, and they're going to go to the Peach Bowl or something like that and play against somebody like Penn State, and it's going to get everybody completely jacked up. And that momentum is going to recruiting season. All of this is going to happen during the portal season, and it's going to be a situation where let's freaking go. Ole Miss football is in a better place than it has been in my lifetime. This is the most talented team that Ole Miss football has had in my lifetime. And the record is going to point out with the way that they're able to win games at the end of the game because they have better talent than they normally do. So we'll see where this Ole Miss program goes. But all I can tell you right now, in the 1980s, Ole Miss was a borderline Independence Bowl level team. They would occasionally win 7 games. They'd go on probation. Then they went to the Gator Bowl and it got a little bit better. They were not a good team in the 70s. They were a little better in the 80s. In the 90s, they got put in a lot of trouble after the Gator Bowl and things like that. The Randy Baldwin, Pat Coleman, and that team, Tom Luke teams. They ended up getting put on probation, ended up with Tommy Tuberville, who recruited Romero Miller and Deuce McAllister and those guys. And then started a bowl run for Ole Miss where all of a sudden Ole Miss was ending up consistently in these lower level bowl games. That was the first step. That was the first time the 4 moved. David Cutcliffe continued that, got Ole Miss back to New Year's Day, played in a Cotton Bowl, played for the SEC West Championship, 7-1 in the SEC West that year. Still hasn't been touched by any other coach in the age of divisions, which are now going away. Then Ole Miss decided that they couldn't handle mediocrity anymore, and they hired Ed Orgeron, and they no longer got mediocrity. So you had to build it again. But what Ed Orgeron did was recruit players at a high level to the University of Mississippi. Houston Nutt inherited that team, went to back-to-back Cotton Bowls, first time in 50 years. Things went a little bit south after it got a little bit good. Hugh Freeze came in, raised the floor yet again. The 2014 Alabama game started a streak to where Ole Miss has gone to Access Bowls 3 times, and they're likely going again. So 4 times in 10 years is what will be on the table for Ole Miss. Ole Miss now is trying to raise that floor again. They've gotten to the point where they are a low teens, top 10 type team that shows up pretty consistently. And that's nothing to be sneezed at as well. I do want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Jace Media. You know, we spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses and who starts and sits. I'm thankful for that connection that we have. And today I want our chat to be a little bit more personal, actually a lot more personal. I just realized that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medication. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You're covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, and Rivolta. And this is possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com and you can receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered antibiotic kits. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. You know, if you or someone you love would love some peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. LOCKEDON, all one word, for $20 off your purchase. The Rebels play Louisiana Monroe Saturday at 11 a.m. I'm waiting on the channel from SiriusXM, but this is your chance to listen to David Kellum and the Rebels' hometown crew as Ole Miss looks to continue their run. Catch every play of the broadcast with SiriusXM or on the SXM app, searching Ole Miss Rebels. All right. Pretty cool weekend for Ole Miss and the SEC. This is the weekend that you kind of play the cupcake team. So there's 2 games. Alabama and Chattanooga is not on this list. And Texas A&M and Abilene Christian is not on this list as well. But on this list, you have ULM at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a 34-point favorite. Honestly, smash ULM on that one. After a game like Georgia, the team generally doesn't perform very well. And although we'll see what happens, but Ole Miss is favored by 34 over the Warhawks of ULM. We'll save the USM game for last because I have some thoughts on that game. Georgia's at Tennessee, a 10.5-point favorite. Georgia's the best team in the country. Tennessee is kind of without they kind of overlooked Maryland and got thumped a little bit over the weekend. This is a situation I expect Georgia to go in there. This is the first time this team has looked this healthy. And my goodness, that offense looked good. And that offensive line, I told everybody all last week, this offensive line is the best offensive line that Ole Miss is going to see. And they were. They were. He played 7-on-7. He did the things that I said that Ole Miss couldn't allow him to do, and he made Ole Miss pay. Florida is at Missouri. Missouri's a 10-point favorite. I mean, will Missouri, after their emotional win over Tennessee, which, believe it or not, it was emotional, will they be able to bounce back against the Gators? The Gators are just a weird team. They're just a weird team. They end up losing 52-35 or something like that against LSU. LSU is going to end up winning 10 games, 9 or 10 games this year if you count a bowl game. But we'll see exactly how that goes. Jaden Daniels, the best football player in the country. He should win the Heisman regardless of what LSU's record is. He's really good. Kentucky's at South Carolina, and depending on which service you're on FanDuel, Kentucky's favored by 3, but other services have it as low as a pick'em to where you can take South Carolina. I just think that Kentucky has a little bit better team than South Carolina at the moment. I think they're going to be able to cause some havoc with their defensive line on South Carolina's offensive line, and they're going to be able to push them around a little bit. I think they're overreacting to the Alabama loss just a little bit. FIU is at Arkansas. Arkansas is favored by 26 points. It's the point now, rumors are starting to come out that they're going to move away from Sam Pittman. It's just a matter of when. You have FIU. There's no bowl game in the future for Arkansas, and Arkansas is favored by 26 points at home. FIU is not good. That's Mike McIntyre and his boys. But Arkansas at minus 26, I don't know if Arkansas can score 26 points against Air. I mean, honestly, I just don't know. Georgia State is at LSU. LSU's favored by 28. Here's the question. Usually when LSU plays a non-conference team, Florida State accepted, they kind of show out a little bit, but can LSU get 4 stops in this game? Or is it going to be a ping pong match? Is it going to be a tennis match? If they can get those stops, Georgia State's not going to stop LSU. Jaden Daniels is going to have his way with that team. But I am curious to see if that defense, who usually does pretty well against non-conference teams, not named something other than Florida State, or not named Florida State. New Mexico State is at Auburn. Auburn's favored by 22 points. I think New Mexico State is in line for, I think, a CUSA divisional championship. Jerry Kill has done a fantastic job with the New Mexico State Aggies and has them, honestly, as a decent little program. They still have a long way to go. They're from Las Cruces, whatever. They're down there by the border. They're one of the poorest schools in Division I, but they're going to go over and get their paycheck at Auburn because there's a lot of stuff that happens to where you're trying to get that payday. So that's the reason New Mexico State is doing this. They're getting paid by Auburn. So they're going to go over. So it's a rental win. Auburn's a lot better right now than they were when Ole Miss played them. So we'll see what's up. And our final game of the day, USM is at Mississippi State. Mississippi State is favored by 14. The last 3 to 4 weeks, USM has looked, let's say, competent. They changed offensive coordinators. They can score some points. They scored 38 or something like that against ULL. They scored nearly 40 against Appalachian State. If they can score, okay, if they can score, they are going to give Mississippi State problems. They just are. This is a Mississippi State team that ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown against Texas A&M and scored 3 points for the rest of the game. The final score in that game was 51-10, but Mississippi State was ahead 7-0 after returning the opening kickoff for a touchdown. This is a situation 5 days before the Egg Bowl, which the Egg Bowl is undoubtedly the most important game on their schedule each and every year. They care about the Egg Bowl. They want to care about the Egg Bowl. They put this game that is going to mean just about as much to USM as Mississippi State cares about the Egg Bowl. So you're going to be dealing with a war 5 days before you play Ole Miss. and Ole Miss potentially going for their 10th win of the season in Starkville with a coach that may or may not be a lame duck. If USM really stands out and does that, Zach Arnett may be a lame duck in that game. There's rumblings all over the place that Mississippi State may move on from Zach Arnett. But that's not going to change the other factors other than who is taking the L's. I kind of like USM in this game, at least to cover the line. I think it's going to be an uncomfortable game for Mississippi State. I think you're going to be able to see Mississippi State probably pull away late, but if it's close in the fourth quarter, look out, because if USM thinks they can win, this would be like Ole Miss scheduling Memphis 5 days before the Egg Bowl. It's problematic. Whoever scheduled this game should be fired with cause, period. Yeah, it's going to be nuts. But, yeah, I'm going to be double boxing the game. That game is on at the same time as Ole Miss and ULM. I'll be double boxing it. I'm thinking about, I don't know if anybody wants to do it, but maybe doing a Discord live and like sharing the screen with the live stream on YouTube and just everybody like a sports bar or something like that. I don't know, but just having that split screen could be interesting as well. Anyway, thank you very much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, in summation, is Lane Kiffin going to Texas A&M? I severely doubt it. Is Ole Miss going to get better and be closer to Georgia? They're recruiting really well. And third of all, whoever scheduled that USM Mississippi State game 5 days before the Egg Bowl should be fired with cause. That is my points from this episode, and we will see you tomorrow. Anyway, take care.